it's just funny. This comes to my mind. I remember my dad. So the guy, I've already done this, so I'm telling him, look, you walk backwards when you go into the water because the fins are so deep. So we get this little lecture from the guy. First, it is a teaching from the guy that's our guide. Because we had a guide take us out in the water. You're in Mexican waters, you don't know really a lot of what's out there, a lot of dangerous things. So he gives us a little tutorial. But he says one thing. He's looking out from the beach and he says, you see that little outcropping out there that you see every so often when the water goes down? You see the top of that? He says, stay away from that. He said, don't get near that. There are sea anemones that are poisonous to that stings you. You could die out there. You could get paralyzed. Many other dangers around that outcropping. So he says, whatever you do, don't touch it, don't get near it. So I'll never forget when I was reading this and I was praying and I was studying, it came to my mind. My dad and I there's about 6 of us out there, and we're in the deep waters. We got past where you could touch. And that was where the best sights were. The snorkeling was perfect there. So we're out there, and you know how you have the snorkel and you'll go look down the water, you're breathing. How many have ever done snorkeling? I know you guys are flatlanders, so you never go to the beach. But so you're breathing, and you're looking down, and all of a sudden, I realize that my dad's in trouble. My dad gets so tired and gets so exhausted. And guess where he starts heading for? And I yelled, I said, Dad, don't get near that rock. But he couldn't touch the bottom. It was deep waters. It was over his head. He became so desperate. He knew the danger. But he, despite the guy, actually our guide started cussing. He started yelling at the top of his lungs at my dad, telling him, don't go over there, with some other profanity. And my dad paid no attention because he was so desperate. He was going down. He was coming up to try to get a breath, and he knew he was in trouble. He ran out of all his physical strength. Everything that he had, all of his ability was gone, and he knew that that was the only place he was willing to take a risk and go to that rock. And he went over there and just laid on that rock. Through all that, I realized that even in that, his weakness and his inability to be able to... How many of you have ever treaded water? And you treaded, and then all of a sudden you said, hey, wait a minute. It's getting harder and harder. I'm starting to get tired. And you start feeling like, man, this is deep water. I'm in trouble. And you start looking wherever you can for a rescue. Well, God spared him. Even in that desperation, he did not get one thing puncturing his body. He didn't get straightened up. The guy that was with us didn't understand how that his life was preserved, because he just didn't go hold on the rock like this. He came up to the rock and he just laid on it when the waves are going up and down, and his life was preserved. See, God is with us. Even when we run out of physical strength, even when we go through 2017, we're going to hit the wall. We're going to have things that are going to happen to us, and we know that in all that, God is with us. That's why we have hope. It's not because of anything that we have. It's not our own strength. It's not our own ability. And so when you look at this and you see, Isaiah says, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. Over my head comes to my mind enormous problems to where I lose perspective. I can't touch the bottom anymore. Way beyond what I can handle, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And no one around me can help me. How many were there in 2016? It didn't matter who you went to. It didn't matter what counsel you got. You came to a place where you knew that if God didn't come through, if he didn't help you, if he didn't come in the middle of the night and he didn't take and give you peace, you felt like you were going to not make it. The unknown. And then the unknown, because you don't know what's going to happen. When you get in that position, you don't know what's going to happen. In Isaiah 43:2, Isaiah, the way that he penned it, he said, I will be with you when you go through rivers of difficulty. You will not drown. So when you go through this year of 2017, and you have things, see, we don't even know what tomorrow's going to bring, do we? We don't know. I can't even tell you what happened in the last few days of my life. I can't tell you because it's something that is not able to be told to you. And it affected me. I didn't know what was going to happen. You know, we are surrounded with people every day that are making bad choices. And people have sowed seeds in 2016 that they're going to have a crop in 2017, and it won't be good. And it will affect you. And then you will have things that will happen to you personally in 2017, but you do not have to fear. You're not going to drown. God is going to be with you, and until your purpose is completed on this earth, it does not matter what doctors say, it doesn't matter what the law says, it does not matter
Hallelujah.
what it says. And that's why the hope that springs up is powerful. Because in the midst of whatever we're going through, we can say, wait a minute, my hope is not based on anything here on earth. It only is based on God's promises. What God says about me is true, and it's over. Amen. So you can't convince me. The devil can't convince me. My own mind can't convince me. My emotions can't convince me that God is not real and his promises are yes and amen. All the way through 2017. It's not going to be just for a day or for a month or while you're practicing religion. It's going to be because God is real and he's sovereign. And he will complete what he started. So Isaiah says, when you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. So I hope that as you go through even the first week or the 2 weeks of this year that's starting, today's the first day. Today's the first day. Isn't that amazing that Sunday we get to start the very first day of the whole year of 2017? And we get to start today in church. Yes. Some of us have felt like this in 2016. We're swimming and we're beginning to get exhausted. You can look back and probably if you're like me, you can remember some of those seasons. And it's not bad for me to go back, and it's not because I have a problem with what happened. It's I'm saying, thank you, Jesus. I see what happened, and I'm here today, and I see how you got me through that, and I'm here today. It wasn't good when I was going through it, but God, you got me through it, and I'm here today, and we're here the first day of 2017, and you're sitting in this building today. Sickness. Some of us have had our family members get sick. And we have had friends, and maybe even yourself, you've gone through some things that were horrendous in your body. Sickness that you couldn't control. And maybe financial crisis. I know I'm talking to somebody here today. Financial crisis can be almost like, and I remember years ago where you feel like that, you know, the bills, they just keep mounting up and there's never enough money and you're treading water and you're the bottom, you can't see the bottom, it's the unknown, you don't know what's going to happen. And the bills just keep coming. And you think you're going to go under. And your children. Sometimes our children can cause so much. Some of you are sitting there right now, you're thinking, yeah. In so many different ways. When you get sick or someone close to you becomes very ill, it can sometimes cause you to question our beliefs about God. When we move beyond the negative emotions, we begin to see things more rationally. We see things more clearly. When there's not enough money to take care of all the bills and things seem to be getting worse instead of better, everything looks bigger than it really is, right? I mean, when the good times are rolling and you got a $50 bill that came in for utilities, you just write out the check, put it in the mail, and say, done. But now when you're treading water and you're getting weak and you're getting tired and there's not enough money and you can't stretch it anymore and you're now behind and the bill collectors are calling you and now suddenly that $50 bill from the utility company, it looks like it's massive, like it's Mount San Jacinto. It looks like it's the Big Bear Mountain. You're saying, wow. Things get out of perspective, don't they? But with God, when God's in control, and he says, I will never leave you or forsake you, things begin to really come back into focus. When our children break our hearts, even the very simple things in our life become exceedingly more difficult. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that when things are out of order with your family, with your children especially, or your grandkids, and things start to happen, and now just a little tiny thing seems huge. You're in the kitchen. Dishes begin to pile up because nobody wants to wash the dishes. And before it didn't bother you. But just a simple thing. Who left all these? I want to kill the next person that becomes huge, doesn't it? Even the simple mundane things in life become so big because everything is out of order, because we're taking all of these problems, these difficulties, these seasons we go through, even with our children. But God always puts everything back into perspective. If we take a look back at 2016, just if you could do that with me for just a moment, in your mind, and it's hard to do, huh, because a lot happened in 2016. But just try to look back. And just try to go from January 1st last year and just kind of work your way through 2016. And we might just, if we see it with God's perspective, we might just see all the provision. And we might just be able to see all the things in the timing of God. We didn't at the time think that his timing was very good, did we? We look back and say that was a season of difficulty. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was in the fire of oppression. And now that I look back on it, I see God's timing. I see God's provision. He brought me out of it, and I'm here today to shout, thank you, Lord, that I made it to 2017. Today is a new gift that God gave me. I gave up God this morning, and God gave me everything that I will ever need. God has kept you all the way through 2017. All the way through to the first day. Whatever you went through in 2016, you weren't alone. God was with you. Say that and just feel how good that feels. Say, God was with me. God is with me. And when you begin to let that resonate inside of you, when you begin to go through the deep waters and you begin to go through the fire of oppression and you feel like that there's no bottom and it gets so deep, the unknown, and then you start to realize, well, God's with me. He's with me through all of this. I'm not by myself. I may be sitting in the emergency room and there's nobody down here, but I'm not by myself. I may be sitting in this little doctor's office waiting for the worst news in the world, but I'm not by myself. God is right here in this room. He's sitting right next to me. And this is the hope that we have. God loves you. He never gives up on you. Aren't you thankful that in 2016, I got to tell you that there were times that I had to go and repent to God. I had to say, God, thank you for not giving up on me, because that was some of the most stinking thinking I had for the last 2 weeks. That was ridiculous. When I know your promises about me, I know you have a purpose for me, you have a plan for me. Why did I let myself get out there and start thinking like that? God, forgive me for that kind of thought. Maybe none of you ever had that happen. See, God, He sees the best of you that you often can't see yourself. You can't even the people around you, they're telling you. They're saying, man, God is with you. You are going to have an awesome year in 2017 because I see God working in your life. You have purpose in your life. Though you may go through rivers of trouble, you are going to make it through because God's timing and His provision will always be there. He's always going to be with you. So He knows a lot more about us than we know about ourselves. He knows what your future can be like. He sees it. His perspective, see, He knows you. He knows your plan. The plan that He has for you, and He knows your plan. That's what I love about God. He knows your problems, and He knows your potential. God knows exactly what He's built inside of you. So keep going. Keep loving. Keep on pushing on. Keep reaching out to God. And keep hoping for 2017. Okay. You may all still be suffering from what I call the lag. It's not jet lag, it's New Year's Eve lag. But I'm preaching myself happy here today. Because what I know God has got planned for all of us, what I know God has got planned for this community, it gets me so excited inside, because then I know it's not about me, it's not about my own strength, not about my own ability. It's faith. Faith tells us that God will be with us no matter what happens. No matter what happens. No matter what happens this year. No matter what happens. happens, faith tells us that God is right there with us. He's right there walking right with you no matter what happens. It changes everything. It's a game changer. It's a life changer. It changes everything about what we do. When you pass through the waters, Isaiah says, I will be with you. Look at these words. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. We know that when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, how many had that story given to you in Sunday school? They would not bow down to the king. They would only bow down to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So when they were thrown in the fire, guess who was there with them? I love that story because as the king was looking in there, he's saying, wait a minute. We threw 3 Hebrew children in there. In fact, when the people that were ordered, that were working under the king, submitted to the king, when they began to push the 3 Hebrew, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they began to put them in the fire. They died because the heat was so hot, and the king's rubbing his eyes saying, wait a minute, didn't we put 3 in there? There's 4 in there. Oh, you guys didn't get it. God was in there with them. Yeah, that was an epiphany. That was where God, Jesus, He came before He came here to earth. He was there in there with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And it says they walked out of the other side. And it says that they did not even smell like fire. That's God. That's what we have to envision. We got to see God in 2017 that way. You know what? It's not if it's going to happen. He's telling us that we got to get ready. And then when we come out on the other side, we won't be burned up. We won't burn ablaze. We will be able to come out on the other side. I like that. We won't even smell like smoke. And then the testimony of God rises up to the heavens because the people around us that don't have the hope, they start to see you and say, man, these people got something. It's not from earth. It's amazing. What they went through would have killed anybody, but they don't even smell like it. They're on the other side of it, and they have to have a source. It has to be God. That's the kind of 2017 I'm expecting, that we're not going to even smell like fire. When we go through the fire, we're going to come out on the other side, and God's going to rule and reign, and the testimony is going to overflow in the city. If you only knew what God's going to do in the city. I've seen it. I am so, I can't even give you human expression enough to tell you the souls that are going to be saved. I know that you've heard it before, but the problem is you're listening to the wrong voices. Because if you don't believe what God says, it's either your own voice, or it's the enemy's voice, or it's the people around you's voice. I can assure you it's not God's voice, because God said, I will be with you. He said, I will be with you even to the end of the age. He will be with you, all the way through 2017. So what kind of deep water or fire have you already navigated successfully through in the year 2017? I want you to consider it for a moment. Many of you, I know your lives, and you've navigated through it, not by yourself, but by God being with you, holding you up. When you began to go under, He grabbed a hold of you and He pulled you up. I know. I've been in the hospital room with people. I've been there when I've heard what the doctors have said. I've heard them. It's their medical training. It was real. It was reality. But I knew that God was also there too. And you navigated through that, all that in 2016. You're here today. So God, there was provision. And you cannot let your mind go there and say, well, you know, God, you let me down, and I'm beginning to doubt everything that I've ever heard, everything that I've ever learned. I'm beginning to doubt it. You need to pull up out of there real quick and say, wait a minute, what about all the provision? How did I get here today? How is it that I'm still breathing? How is it that I'm still up and around and I'm doing God's work? That's what's exciting. Not even to smell like smoke. I'm excited about 2017. We've got a lot of things planned for 2017. And God is going to do something amazing.